Good morning. This is Tom Alexander. It is Sunday, December 31st. It is the last day of 2023. And we've had the last day of trade for 2023. We're heading into a new year, and we had quite an interesting year. We had quite an interesting last quarter. We had an epically strong last quarter as far as the stock indices are confirmed. And as I have been saying and writing and posting, I think last quarter was a perfect storm of bullish events. We were coming into the fourth quarter. We had an extremely friendly Fed narrative that switched on a dime on people. We had institutions that were underinvested. We had the FOMO trade, and then we had the seasonality. So all of those things combined, and we had this ripping rally that was pretty epic. And it was epic, it was really, really strong in terms of magnitude. But the more unusual thing about the rally was that it was so extraordinarily one-sided in all time frames. There was very little day-to-day retracement, and in a couple of the indices like the SPX, the NDX, and I think the Dow, you had very little weekly probing of the previous week's range. Now you had a little bit of that in the Russell, but the Russell also led the charge higher. So we're heading into the new year. I think that in general, if you ask me if we're in a bull market or bear market, I'd have to say we're in a bull market. Now, I use price action to determine the trend of the market. The trend of the market is up in all time frames based on price action, all time frames, short term, long term, intermediate term. Now, that said, the market is also very stretched. I don't use the terms overbought and oversold because there's no such thing. But by almost any statistical, historical measure you want to use, the four primary U.S. trading indices are all in all time frames now extended. Now, can this continue? Yes, but the markets, and I based on what I'm seeing now, I would expect that we're going to see higher highs regardless of whatever short-term top is made here. And that's generally as far as I go in making predictions about trading, because I'm a trader, I'm not a predictor. So what I am looking for here is for this trend at a minimum to slow down, and that includes some retracement greater than any that we've seen since the October low. Now that's a pretty low bar, because I think the NDX may have had a short-term retracement of 2 to 3%, but the SPX and Dow have had, I think, 1% declines that have lasted basically hours. So that's going to change. Now we can be at 50% next year, but still not go up at the same rate of change that we've been up with the lack of rotation that we've seen since the end of October. Let's look at some charts here. Okay, I'm going to start with I'm going to show weekly charts. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this week, because I don't trust anything that happened this past week, because it's an extremely low volume week. I'm not going to trust a lot of what happens in the first part of next week either. So I'm going to show you the larger degree levels. And in the case of the indices, it's basically to the upside. It's basically last week's high, because we're trading in new all-time high ground in the NDX and the Dow. The Russell is in the middle of nowhere, and the SPX is trading right at its all-time high, which is around 4,800. You can see on my screen here, again, this is the weekly chart. The levels are pretty easy in my mind at the moment. I'm going to show you the profile view in just a minute that I think may give us a better idea about an intermediate term path. But this is the SPX. Move over to the NDX. Same thing. I mean, your levels are basically last week's high and low for, to begin with. And then if we look at the Dow, which has been extraordinarily vertical in all time frames, relentlessly so since the October low. And then we come to the Russell. And here's the Russell. Now, I think it's really, really, really potentially bullish from an intermediate to long-term perspective, that the Russell has taken out these highs here. Now, something else I'll point out, and this goes on the bearish side of the ledger, is that the Russell, and I'm going to show you, let's see, okay, from the low to the high, the Russell's up like almost 27%. That led the indices. Now, you'll also notice the Russell closed below last week's low. And it also potentially is leaving a selling tail on the chart after breaking through this level. Now, we can trade anywhere back into this range, and it's a complete guess where this thing stops. I mean, there's no telling. Okay, but the fact that we broke above this level is potentially very, very bullish. Now, short term is potentially bearish that we close below last week's low. So you can have we have different development in different time frames. That's the development on the weekly chart. Now let's look real quickly at the profile view, and I want to show the Dow, because it really gives the most extreme reading of any auction you're ever going to see. Now, these are quarterly auctions, meaning each letter is 1 week, and you can see how relentless is this advance in the Dow off this October low. Now, let me show this. This is what's going to happen. I'm not in the predicting business, but there's certain things that can be predicted. This is one of those few things. You're going to get more development than we've seen. So you're going to have something like this that begins sooner rather than later. It may have already begun, I don't know, but we'll see. You're going to have some more development like this. You have this, you have this, you have this. Even in extremely vertical bull markets, you get more rotation than we've had. We haven't had any yet. Now, if we go higher, it's going to be something like this. But this is something I feel really, really confident in, and think we're going to see a lot more of, is this rotation. I'm not going to show the technicals this week because there's no point. There's so many if and or buts. The lack of liquidity lack of volume last week. We have the new year coming up, the first week of the new year. That's going to shake things around. So check in next weekend and we'll do a review of the technicals. By the way, please subscribe to the channel. If you found value in the channel, in the material, please like it. It helps build the channel. That would be very much appreciated. You guys have a most wonderful new year. I'll be in touch.